The new book, Arakawa Immortal Journey, provides a lot of support for traveling to the world of the bright moon in the Qin Dynasty, and also comes with a cheat system. Ying Ziyi had to wipe away his sweat, and in just over 20 years, the Qin Dynasty would have to finish playing. Let's just finish playing. I'm still bound to the Qin Dynasty. Who would let him have the surname win? In the end, Ying Ziyi expressed that she would follow her own path and leave Empress Xuanji with no way to go. Keywords of the novel. Qin Shi Mingyue's great anti-faction system with no pop-ups. Download the complete TXT collection of Qin Shi Mingyue's great anti-faction system, and read the latest chapters of Qin Shi Mingyue's great anti-faction system. Chapter 1. Crossing without cheats is not easy. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. A long starry night, flowing fire through the sky. In the city of Xianyang, ordinary people have already fallen asleep, trying to gather enough energy for tomorrow's increasingly busy work. This celestial phenomenon has alarmed countless talented people and scholars in the world. A pair of eyes stared at the fiery red sky, without knowing why. On an unattainable mountain peak, a person stood tall and sighed, strange numbers. This is a peaceful night, and it is also a chaotic era. The state of Qin in Guangzhou is eyeing the world with a tiger in its eyes. The 6 kingdoms of Kanto are constantly in conflict, with no peace day after year. King Ying Ziyi of Qin has been in power for many years, and he has been personally involved in everything. It is already late at night, and he is still reviewing memorials on his documents. Tonight, Ying Ziyi was very happy. He received a report from the Internal History of Grain Control, stating that this year, there are abundant grain crops in various parts of Guangzhou. The Jianghu Canal has been completed, and Guangzhou receives abundant harvests every year. From then on, the 800-mile Qinchuan River has become even more prosperous. As Father Zhong said, what Jingguizu left behind is not water, but gold. With the grain produced by the 2 counties of Ba and Shu, the granaries of the Great Qin are already full. It seems that it's time, Ying Ziyi chuckled to himself. Your Majesty. What's up? Outside, a palace maid came to report, but was stopped by the guards outside the palace. Congratulations, Your Majesty. Empress Li Ji has given birth and is a prince. Please give the prince a name. One of his favorite concubines gave birth to a boy, and Ying Ziyi was naturally very happy. Let's call it Ziyi. Thus, King Ying Ziyi of Qin, who would also be the 14th prince of the future Emperor Qin Shi Huang, was born. 6 years later. Ying Ziyi has been in this world for 6 years. 6 years is enough time for Ying Ziyi to understand the basic information of this world. Qin King Ying Ziyi's 14 sons, Ying Ziyi. Fortunately, Ying Ziyi walked along the long corridor and patted her small chest. At this moment, the Qin state's annexation of Han and the destruction of Zhao are at a time of great prosperity. If it's been more than 20 years, then I really want to cry without tears. Young master, what are you doing? The palace maid behind whispered to Ying Ziyi, who was stunned as she walked. Ah! Ying Ziyi regained his senses, turned his head slightly, and said, it's okay. This is a slowly advancing team. Behind Ying Ziyi, 2 maids and 2 eunuchs followed. Located on the throne of Prince Qin, Ying Ziyi can be said to have no worries about food and clothing. But this is also where Ying Ziyi is most worried. Others may not know, but he still has a certain understanding of the history of later generations. After only 15 years of annexation by the state of Qin, it was conquered by Xiang Yu of Lu Bang, and the descendants of the Ying family were even slaughtered. This is not just a tragic word. Another thing is Zhao Gao, a young man of 2 or 5. Every time he sees his gloomy gaze, Ying Ziyi feels a cold surge rising from his body. It's here. Stepping through the long corridor and turning around is the purpose of Ying Ziyi's trip. A quiet room. Among them, someone had already been waiting. From Fu Su, the eldest son of King Qin, to Hu Hai, the 18th prince, they have all been waiting here. The more than 10 sons of King Qin were all gathered together. Before the crowd, there was an old man with white beard and hair, named Matsushiko. Beside him, there was also a little Taoist kneeling. During the pre-Qin period, 100 schools of thought were contending. This Songlongzi is said to be a leader of Taoism, with a high rank. At this point of his study tour, King Yingzheng of Qin, in order to show his respect, specially invited a group of young masters to come and listen to the lecture. Ying Ziyi was the latest one to arrive. She found a vacant seat at the back and sat down, while the palace eunuchs waited outside. Seeing that everyone had already arrived, Matsudaira Takako began his speech. Ying Ziyi had no interest in what Songlongzi had said. The old man talked for 3 or 4 hours as soon as he spoke. Looking at the old man with white hair and green clothes above, he touched his stomach and sighed, feeling hungry. "May I ask if you have any objections to what I said, young master?" Ying Ziyi's appearance was all in the eyes of Songlongzi, and he smiled and asked. The young masters turned around, and everyone's gaze now converged on Ying Ziyi. Ah! Ying Ziyi was taken aback for a moment, looked up, and realized that he had become the center of attention. He stood up and chuckled foolishly. "I think what master just said is very accurate." "Who knows what he just said, just nod." Why did the young master shake his head and sigh? "You're not finished yet, are you?" Ying Ziyi said angrily in his heart. After thinking for a moment, Ying Ziyi finally replied, "Sigh, master's studies are useless." This is a blatant mockery. This statement sparked a discussion on the spot. Gongzi Fusu stood up and bowed to Songlongzi, saying, "My younger brother has no taboo words. I hope Mr. Hai can understand. Gentle and courteous, courteous and courteous." Undoubtedly the eldest son of the king of Qin, Yingzheng regarded Fu Su as the future heir. Matsushito secretly praised. "Fusu Gongzi is too humble." Matsudaira no longer hesitated about Ying Ziyi's words and continued his speech. Ying Ziyi continued to wander beyond the sky, only to realize that the young Taoist beside the old man was staring at him with a pair of beautiful big eyes. Ying Ziyi took advantage of the old man's lack of attention and stuck out his tongue, making a face at the little Taoist. The little Taoist was surprised and didn't expect the young master to be so expressionless. He gave Ying Ziyi a fierce glance and then moved his gaze away. "Ha! There's a hint of feminine charm between the young Taoist's eyebrows and delicate eyes. Is it a woman?" Ying Ziyi whispered. Matsushito's speech is over. Ying Ziyi touched his starving stomach and said, "Has class finally ended?" At this moment, Fu Su stood up and said, "What master is talking about is very profound. Fu Su seems to understand but doesn't understand. Please advise me on some questions." "What's the problem, young master?" Matsudaira Takako felt relieved when faced with such a studious student. In silence, Ying Ziyi had to listen to each of Fusu's questions one by one. Another hour passed, and all of Fu's questions were answered one by Matsunaga. This speech has finally come to an end. "Young master, please stay." Just as all the young masters stood up and left, Songlongzi suddenly called out to Ying Ziyi. "Me." Ying Ziyi pointed to himself with his finger. "That's right." Matsudaira nodded. "What is this old man asking me for?" When all the young masters left, there were only 3 people left in the quiet room. Matsudaira Takako asked, "Why did you just say that what I said was useless?" "So it's this." Ying Ziyi's young body collapsed on the ground and smiled. "Non-timely. What does it mean?" Matsushiko asked with a somewhat shameless expression. In the Warring States period, the world tended to be treacherous. Until now, Han conquered Zhao Can and the 6 states in the Kanto region were in name only. In less than 10 years, Qin would be able to annex the world. It may be too early for the master to say that the country was lightly enslaved. Oh. 10 years later, when the world is finally settled, shouldn't we be more lenient in corvée et labor and stabilize the hearts of the people? Asked Matsushi. Really? There are Xiongnu in the north and Baiyu in the south. Can the world really be stable? Ying Ziyi asked in reverse. Matsumoto lowered his head and stroked his beard, lost in thought. Ha! Old man, I'm afraid. Brother is a person with a history. Someone stood up proudly, and in the slightly strange gaze of the little Taoist, he turned around and left behind a young but majestic, someone thought, figure. Sir's suggestion, it's still too early. Wait a minute. What's going on? Matsudaira took out a piece of silk cloth from his sleeve. Young master, this is the method of nourishing qi in my Taoist school. Practicing is very beneficial, and it can be considered as a way to repay the young master's kindness in dispelling my doubts. Wow, martial arts secrets. Ying Ziyi ran over and took it over, flipping through it. What is this? I can't understand it at all. Ah, what's written above is mostly terminology. If you're not familiar with my Taoist scriptures, it might be difficult to understand. Matsushiko smiled. That's useless. Ying Ziyi looked down upon him in his heart. I will soon leave Xianyang. I'm afraid I don't have time to teach you the basics. Alright, I'll keep my junior sister in Qin Palace for a year to assist you. Where are you, junior sister? Ying Ziyi looked left and right, completely unable to find the person in his mind who portrayed the image of junior sister Songlongzi. Xiaomeng, see you young master. Just as Ying Ziyi was lost and ignorant, the little Taoist raised his delicate eyebrows, stood up, and saluted. That's what he said. A black shadow flashed by and disappeared in an instant. In the spacious and lonely hall, on the majestic throne, Ying Zheng seemed a bit surprised when he heard the report from his shadow guards. There are Xiongnu in the north and Baiyu in the south. You're right, but the enemies of our great Qin are not just here. Your Majesty. Lord Moon God, please meet me. Outside the hall, the voices of the attendants rang out, and Ying Zheng finally came to his senses from his thoughts. Are you from the Yin Yang family? Ying Zheng murmured softly and said, spread it. Ying Ying Shioli, swaying in a graceful manner. Although covered with light gauze, it is difficult to conceal the unparalleled charm. The moon god, the right guardian of the Yin Yang family, slowly arrived. Farewell to the king. Don't be too polite. Ying Zheng was very polite to him. King Xie. What's up with the moon god coming here? For the 14th prince of the king. Ziyi. Recently, I have been doing astrology and have discovered that your majesty's 14th prince has a strange fortune. Perhaps he is a person who is crucial to your majesty's great cause. Is that so? But perhaps it was also the person who ruined the great cause of the king, said the moon god after a pause. Does your excellency the Eastern Emperor have any suggestions? Qin King Ying Zheng seemed not surprised by the somewhat threatening words of the moon god. Fortune and misfortune are hard to determine, and fate is uncertain. Your excellency the Eastern Emperor said that perhaps he can teach that child. Ha ha ha. Your majesty. Looking at Ying Zheng's smile, the moon god was quite puzzled. You're late. Songlongzi just left his junior sister at the Qin Palace to teach Ziyi. Taoism. Tianzong. Moon god warned in his heart. Welcome all book enthusiasts to come and read. The latest, fastest, and most popular serialized works are all original at the starting point. 2. Chapter 2. The Correct Way of Discussing by Dong. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the evening, Qin Palace, Ying Ziyi's palace. What is this thing? Ying Ziyi flipped through the silk book given by Songlongzi, and the text and graphics on it were like heavenly letters, which made him feel headache-free. Immediately left aside. He is sitting upright at this moment, with his legs crossed. If it appears to others that this young master is meditating and practicing martial arts. Only Ying Ziyi knew that he had entered an unusual situation. This is an extraordinary space, to be precise, a space generated by the system. Big Villain System. A few days ago, when he first entered this space, he was so notified. And the ultimate goal of this system is to cultivate Ying Ziyi into the world's #1 villain. Why should a promising young man like me, who has fair skin, beautiful appearance, and good quality, become a major villain? On a dark and windy night, Ying Ziyi looked up and asked, tears streaming down his face. Bai Dong, good question from the host. Firstly, the host's shameless demeanor is really appreciated by this system. Secondly, do you think people who are good-looking can be seen as villains at a glance? But the villains don't even have girls. Ying Ziyi cried mournfully. Bai Dong, where did this prejudice come from? In history, Xia Jie, Shang Zhou, and 2*** were not the rulers of the harem who exceeded 10,000. Besides, will this system treat you unfairly? But none of the villains will come to a good end, Ying Ziyi protested silently again. Bai Dong, if the above words are still biased, then this time it's pure ignorance. Have you never heard of Wang Ba living for 10,000 years? Hey. What kind of metaphor are you? You're the bastard. Your whole family is a bastard. Finally, under the guidance of a certain system, Ying Ziyi finally abandoned his psychological burden and began his journey as a major villain. Bing Dong, congratulations to the landlord, once again entering the space of the big villain system. By the way, why do you say I'm the landlord? Bing Dong, get used to it, master. If necessary, the names of all subroutines in this system can be modified by the master himself. Okay. Just call me a handsome guy. Wall Dong, this system refuses. Did you just say that everything can be modified? The built-in artificial intelligence voice in this system is not included. Then tell me the truth. Speaking of the matter, Ying Ziyi sat down angrily. This world doesn't seem to be purely from the ancient warring states period. Wall Dong. This world is more similar to the world of the anime, Qin Shi. Below are introductions and career levels of various factions in this world. A huge screen appeared in front of Ying Ziyi, and he quickly flipped through it. The 3 sages of Confucianism, the giant of Mahist school, the 2 schools of Taoism, the 6 halls of farmhouse, legalism. What level do I belong to now? Bai Dong, good question. The landlord is currently an unknown person from his hometown. However, he has a Qin Gongzi buff and is tired of being a member of the royal family of the 6 kingdoms. So it's just a miscellaneous fish. Wall Dong, the explanation is correct. By the way, do you have any skill points or rewards that can automatically upgrade me to a master? Wall Dong, these functions are not included in this system. You're cheating your father, what's the use of you? Ying Ziyi almost vomited blood. Wall Dong, good question from the master. All the main programs and corresponding subroutines in this system aim to cultivate the master into the ultimate villain. All other divine horses are just floating clouds. What are your programs? Wall Dong, the owner can download 300T text instructions on their own, or use graphics from the top of the screen to view them. In addition, besides the main task, the release of other tasks in this system will be triggered. Completing the task will reward you 300 Ts, or just a written explanation. Your sister. Isn't this a joke? Can I read it all in my lifetime? Wall Dong. This system is not responsible for this. Ying Ziyi was speechless about this system. As he flipped through the subsystems on the screen, he said, "Do you know the content of that silk book?" Wall Dong. It has been scanned and obtained. According to the energy replenishment rules of this world and the overall spatial progression analysis, the method recorded in the silk book should belong to the Taoist advanced qi refining method of Wanchuan Qiushui. The master can choose whether to learn it or not. Ha! It's so convenient, learning. Ying Ziyi decisively chose to learn, but soon he noticed a progress bar appearing under a subroutine called Master Lu's cultivation. Wal Dong, the advanced Taoist technique Wan Chuan Qiu Shui, has begun to be practiced. There are still 4 months, 12 hours, 30.5 minutes, and 40.2 seconds left until the completion of the practice. Tip. This program can simultaneously practice 5 objectives online. Why is it so slow? By Dong, this is a progress bar formulated based on the energy compensation rules of this world and the owner's physical fitness. If the owner's physical fitness becomes stronger in the future, the corresponding cultivation time will be shortened. Oh, this is good. Ying Ziyi flipped through it and said as if he had discovered the treasure. Wal Dong, the harem needs to start from the doll. Welcome to click on the Young Training and Dying Plan. Ying Ziyi's little hand tapped on the screen and found that the program could only bind one target, and once bound, it could not be changed again. What's the Young Training and RAN plan? Didn't you just change the names of all subsystems? Let's change them to the Qin Talent Training Plan. Ying Ziyi nodded at his little head, proud of his wisdom. Wal Dong, the name modification is complete. To deceive others, you must first deceive yourself. The shameless level of the landlord has the potential to become a villain. Also, does the landlord have a goal? Is that right? Just that Xiaomeng. Bang. The system cannot bind. Why? Ying Ziyi asked in confusion. The difference between the owner's own level and the opponent's level is too large. Unless the opponent voluntarily agrees, the owner cannot bind it. So what makes voluntary? Ying Ziyi finally asked unwillingly. Wal Dong. Good question. The judgment criteria of this system are based on the fact that you can fully touch her as voluntary. I'm XX, you XX's XX. When Ying Ziyi cursed and exited the system space, he opened his eyes and found Xiaomeng, a lowly, approaching him. He widened his eyes to find something from him. Ying Ziyi was startled and leaned back. What are you doing? You are very extraordinary, Xiaomeng said seriously, wearing a Taoist robe and kneeling on the bed with her calves, her upper body straight. Isn't it just a nap? Ying Ziyi felt a bit guilty and turned the other way. No matter what kind of cultivation method you use, you can't achieve what you just did. Suddenly, your breath is released, as if it is the autumn water of our sex-mind technique. Ha, I was about to ask you, how long does it take for a typical disciple of the heavenly sect to practice the 10,000 rivers autumn water mind technique? If the qualification is average, it will take 10 years, while if the qualification is excellent, it will take about 2 years. 2 years. Then my speed is quite fast. Ying Ziyi asked again, how much time did you spend practicing the autumn water of Wanchuan? 10 days. 10 days. Ying Ziyi regretted asking, it was simply a blow to himself. Big sister, how did you do it? With a firm heart, one can do it on their own. What does it mean? Illiterate Ying Ziyi said he didn't understand. Everything outside of heaven and earth will have its own birth and death. I still don't understand. There is no life and death, no pain and happiness, no gender difference. There is no life and death, no pain and happiness, no gender similarity. Yes is, no is, naturally it is not. Although Ying Ziyi still couldn't understand, he had an idea. Are you saying there is no gender difference? Ying Ziyi asked in a tender voice. Yes. Really? Ying Ziyi wanted to confirm. Seeing the other person nodding with utmost seriousness, he smiled mischievously and said, I don't believe it. I want to see if your heart is firm. Sure, how can we try? Xiaomeng naively replied. So, something disharmonious happened in the late-night Qin Emperor's palace. Wal Dong. Congratulations, Lord. The talent training program for Daqin has begun, with goals bound, Xiaomeng. In some unknown space, suddenly a loud noise occurred. Welcome all book enthusiasts to come and read. The latest, fastest, and most popular serialized works are all original at the starting point. 3. Chapter 3. The Problems of Being Tall. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Come on, open your mouth. Ying Ziyi held a piece of cake and handed it to Xiaomeng's mouth. Xiaomeng opened her chubby mouth, which was already filled with pastries, and swallowed it with difficulty. Young master, let's learn these classics first. Xiaomeng said vaguely. Don't be in a hurry, eat first. Come on, have another one. Ying Ziyi held the pastry and handed it to Xiaomeng, looking at her slightly immature face and smiling helplessly. Xiaomeng frowned and picked up the pastry from Ying Ziyi's hand. The maidservants around looked at these two children, who were almost the same age, with a playful expression, mostly covering their mouths and giggling. As for why do we have to do this? Ying Ziyi discovered that since childhood training No, it's after the start of the Daqin talent program. A progress bar appears on the screen of this subroutine, indicating Xiaomeng's favorability towards him. The system has listed 2 ways to increase favorability. Feeding and giving gifts, while the others are still in a gray state. Why is it gray? According to the system of the Pit Father, due to Ying Ziyi's own low level, it cannot be unlocked. The most unforgettable thing for Ying Ziyi was that the upper limit of Xiaomeng's favorability was unable to view status. Your Highness, can we start teaching? Xiaomeng swallowed all the dim sum and said to Ying Ziyi. Teaching. Ying Ziyi looked at the silk book left by Song Longzi, which was densely packed with a series of small characters and more than 10 incomprehensible graphics. Are we? Xiaomeng frowned and her pure big eyes looked at Ying Ziyi, as if expecting him to say something. Wal Dong. The system kindly reminds you that if you make the other person unhappy, it will reduce their favorability. Currently, the favorability is 10, and the upper limit is. Okay. You say it. Ying Ziyi clenched his small fist. For the sake of goodwill, I endured it. Yes, young master. Xiaomeng stood up and walked to the eaves. Behind her was a green lake, adorned with 3 or 2 lotus flowers. The mirror-like lake water surrounds the quiet room where the 2 people are located. The layout of the quiet room is compact yet exquisite, with Xiaomeng's young body standing in front of her. The air currents surge around her, and the clear water in the lake is pulled by the air currents, surrounding her. Ying Ziyi knew that this was not an ancient memory. He understood this by chance when he saw the groundbreaking qilong created by the public loser. Public losers not only served the empire, but also gained enormous resources for development. Over the years, there has been a trend toward surpassing its arch-rival, the Mahist school. Young master, this is my Taoist's mind technique of 10,000 rivers of autumn water. As Xiaomeng spoke, the water flowing around her was cut into several sections out of thin air, each condensed into droplets. How magical! Ying Ziyi wanted to say, but due to face saving, he still didn't say it in the end. The Taoist heavenly sects Wanchuan Qiushui and Xinruatui techniques have surprisingly been mastered by someone who can simultaneously operate these 2 completely different mental techniques. I have truly gained insight. The voice of Yin measurement came, and Ying Ziyi knew without looking back that it was Zhao Gao, a young man who was speaking. Zhao Gao came slowly, followed by 2 girls with identical faces and figures. Xiaomeng collected her internal strength, and the water droplets turned into fine mist, dissipating in the air. Looking at the person who came over, she secretly thought to herself that Qin was truly a reclining tiger and a hidden dragon. She couldn't tell the depth of the person in front of her. As for the 2 young girls following him, they can also be considered among the experts. Zhao Gao approached and respectfully saluted, young master. What's up? Ying Ziyi turned around and asked. The king has an edict to deliver an audience to the young master. Got it. Ying Ziyi waved his hand, thank you for the order from the Zhongche prefecture. I dare not. Zhao Gao bowed slightly and made a humble gesture. Wal Dong. At that moment, Ying Ziyi's ear rang with such a friendly voice. The main trap of the side quests is open. The trap of heaven and earth is everywhere. As a qualified villain, how can one not have their own eagle dog? Task completion deadline. Before Qin conquered the 6 kingdoms. Task completion condition 1. Zhao Gao's transfer. Incomplete, task completion condition 2. Obtaining the 8 swords of the King of Yu. Incomplete, task completion condition 3 has 500 subordinates. Specific conditions. 300 small minions, unknown origin, 100 small minions, newly emerged from the martial arts world, 60 small leaders, somewhat famous, and 30 leaders, rising fame. Top 10 experts, renowned. 0 first-class experts, standing out from the crowd. 0 top experts, first-generation masters. There are 0 unparalleled experts in the world. 0 names. Incomplete, task completion reward. Title of Lord of the Sky and Earth Nets. Task completion progress. 0. The OP can choose auxiliary subroutines and character detection programs. The detection program for the power of the building owner. Landlord level camouflage program. Choose whether to turn it on. Open. But what's going on with this? Wal Dong. The level of the OP is too low to view. Okay. Ying Ziyi recognized that there was actually a level above the Peerless Master, and he couldn't check it yet. He glanced at Zhao Gao, who was gloomy. At this moment, a holographic screen appeared in front of him, and when he saw Zhao Gao, a message appeared. Character name. Zhao Gao. Gender of the character. Identity. Commander of the Che Mansion in the Kingdom of Qin, Lord of the Heavenly and Earthly Nets. Character level. Top expert, first generation Grandmaster, character evaluation. Cunning and calculating, ruthless and ruthless. Underneath the melancholic appearance, the gloomy gaze hides immense ambition. Hazard level. S system prompt. If it engages in direct combat, the owner should run away. In front of the Zhuhong Hall, Ying Ziyi and Zhao Gao waited quietly. In the palace, King Ying Zhengzheng of Qin discussed with a group of generals led by Wang Jian and a group of civil officials led by Li Si about attacking the 6 kingdoms. Is it attacking Yan or Wei? There was a heated argument in the hall, but Ying Ziyi outside didn't care at all. It's none of my business. Among the 6 states in Shandong, besides Chu, there is still one more battle force. Qi is far from the coast of the East China Sea, so there is no need to worry. Yan and Wei were preoccupied with their own concerns. The self-protection of the country is still insufficient. Chu, the great calamity of Qin. But it remains to be seen whether Chu will send troops for the benefit of Yan and Wei. Whether to attack Yan or Wei, the chances of victory are extremely high. Ying Zheng noticed the figure of Ying Ziyi outside the hall and raised his hands, causing a sudden silence in the hall. All the civil and military ministers, watching their young figures slowly enter the palace, do not understand what the king wants to do. See father. Ying Ziyi saluted. Ziyi, did you probably hear all the ministers' discussions in the palace just now? Yes, father. Do you think we should first attack Wei or Yan? What? How can we ask a despicable child about military and state affairs? The ministers in the palace were all amazed. At this moment, Ying Ziyi's ear also remembered the sound. Wal Dong. Main Task 1. Qin destroys 6 kingdoms. Completion progress is 1/6. Task completion condition 1. The destruction of Korea, completed. Task completion condition 2. The downfall of the state of Zhao, unfinished. The condition for completing the task is the downfall of the Wei kingdom, unfinished. The 4 conditions for completing the task are the downfall of the Chu state, unfinished. The condition for completing the task is the downfall of the 5 Yan kingdom, unfinished. The completion of the task requires the destruction of the state of Qi, unfinished. Task completion reward. Yun Ruo from the King of Qin. The system kindly reminds that the owner's selection can trigger the side task Yi Shui Guhan. Yen Guo. Ying Ziyi said without hesitation. Why? Ying Zheng asked in reverse. Can my brother say it's to complete the task? Because the architecture of Yan Kingdom sounds very beautiful. Ying Ziyi said naively. Ha ha ha. The King of Qin laughed heartily. Okay, then let's first capture the state of Yan. As the laughter of the King of Qin spread throughout the entire hall, the sound of the system program of the Pit Father rang in my ears again. The side quest Yi Shui Guhan has been launched. As a qualified villain, we cannot miss any opportunity to catch the autumn breeze. Task completion condition 1. Jianghu enters Qin. Incomplete, task completion condition 2. Jianghu assassinates Qin, the owner must accompany the King of Qin. Incomplete, task completion condition 3. The death of Jianghu. Incomplete, task completion reward. Famous sword residual rainbow. Puff. Ying Ziyi almost spurted blood. This task is theoretically easy to complete, and Jianghu will definitely come to assassinate the King of Qin. The key is the second condition: when Jianghu assassinates the King of Qin, he must be present. Ying Ziyi looked at his slightly thin figure and then at the joyful King of Qin. The future is really bleak. Without restraint, without restraint. Yendu Jicheng. In the palace, the King of Yen happily paced back and forth, shouting angrily. The scene that occurred in the Qin king's palace quickly spread throughout the world. All countries know that the order of conquering the world was determined by the words of a child, the King of Qin. What does this represent? It's obvious that we don't take the feudal lords of the world seriously. Most importantly, the state of Yen was the next target of the Qin king's surgery. This is Yen Wangshi, how can he not be in a hurry? Prince Dan of Yen and his uncle Yen Chunjun stood motionless on the lower side, waiting for Prince Shi of Yen to vent his anger. What should we do? What should we do? When the anger had been vented, the King of Yen was pleased, and the generation of ruler in charge of Yen finally calmed down. The Qin army was in full force, and the Han and Zhao remnants were annihilated. No one dared to poke their heads in the world. Yen is a small country. It is not advisable to resist, it is better to cut off the land to protect the country, said Yen Chunjun. I know that too. But Qin is a country of tigers and wolves, insatiable greed. I'm afraid my desires are hard to fill. Father, I see you clearly. Before Yen Chunjun could finish speaking, Prince Yen Dan spoke first. The greed of the cruel Qin, and the difficulty of pouring water. Today's plan can only be achieved through 2 strategies. Urgent and slow. Wang, talk about it. Yes. Crown Prince Yen paused for a moment, slow down the policy, reform the military and official system, encourage agriculture and mulberry cultivation, and communicate commerce. Wang Heir, there's no need to hurry. Let's talk about another plan. Yen Wangshi didn't wait for Prince Dan of Yen to finish speaking. You impatiently waved your hand and gestured for him to say the next plan. As for the other strategy, it's assassinating the King of Qin. The last 4 words were bitten particularly hard by Yen Dan. What? What? Yen Wangshi didn't expect that Yen Dan's other strategy would be this. He always believed that Yen Dan was just a gentle and dignified gentleman. Unexpectedly, he also has such a crazy side. Are you crazy? Do you know the consequences of failure? Of course I know, it's just about accelerating the speed of Qin's attack on Yen. But if it's successful, have you ever thought about achieving results, father? Yen Dan's words were like a huge temptation, and in an instant, the king of Yen felt his blood accelerating. Yeah. If it succeeds, what would happen if the Qin state lost the Qin king Ying Ziyi and the Yen state defeated the tyrannical Qin? Although Yan Wangshi was greedy and selfish, he was never foolish. In a moment, he had already calculated the pros and cons. Your Majesty, what the Crown Prince said is a strategy to harm the country. Yan Chunjun exclaimed urgently at this moment. You say it. The Qin palace has strict palace regulations, and the king of Qin is surrounded by many experts. There have always been countless nobles from the 6 countries who wanted the king of Qin's head, but who succeeded in the end. Just because others won't succeed doesn't mean we won't succeed. If we didn't succeed before, it doesn't mean we won't succeed now. It seems that the crown prince must have a sound strategy. Yan Chunjun sneered. Perfection, there is no perfection in the world. Yen Dan smiled and bowed to the king of Yen. Father, the survival and demise of the Yen kingdom will be in this battle. Okay. I'll leave this matter to you. King Yen Shi waved his hand and gestured for Yen Dan to go down. Brother Wang. You know the crown prince's move will cause great trouble to the Yen kingdom. Yen Dan said with some dissatisfaction after leaving. Do you have a better way? King Yen asked in reverse. The king of Qin wanted to attack Yen, but what he wanted was the land of Dukong, not to destroy the Yen state. Wei and Chu, at this moment, are the major troubles of the Qin state. Yan Chunjun is a villain, so there is no burden on him when he talks about cutting soil. That's right, Brother Wang is very right. It's just that if Yingzheng wants it, do I have to give it? Yan Wangshi's face turned red, and his wrinkled skin surged up and down, angrily saying. This is the anger of a long-lost king. However, Yan Wangshi still said weakly, you go down first. Yes. Yan Chunjun hung his head and reluctantly retreated. Husband. Princess Yan, dressed in palace attire, walked slowly. Although her etiquette is not particularly picky, she cannot conceal the urgency in her footsteps and the urgency revealed from it, in order to see her long-awaited husband more quickly. What's wrong with you? Why are you so worried? It wasn't until recently that Yan Dan was leaning against the railing and looking out from afar, with a worried expression on his face. She had never seen her husband show such a look before. The afterglow of the sunset shone on his face, unconsciously staining it with a few traces of vicissitudes. The resolute edges, like a sword sinking into the sand, have worn away the former vitality. The fate of Yen's state has reached a critical moment. Zhao Zheng's former ambitions will eventually be realized through the unparalleled weapon of Qin state. King Qin. Yes. Back then, I was with him as a hostage in the state of Zhao, and no one knew him better than me. He dreamed of changing this corrupt world, unifying the world, and creating a country that never existed before. Isn't that very great? Princess Yan asked cautiously. Yan Dan turned back to look at her beloved wife, her eyes full of unprecedented vigilance. However, the strange expression finally disappeared in a blink of an eye. Yan Dan turned back and looked at the last gleam of the sunset, bright red as blood. No. No one can predict what consequences he will have if he achieves his goal. Killing is inevitable, and how many people will die as a result? Turbulence, hunger, war, epidemics. The most important thing is that his ambition is so great that no one can see its end. I'm afraid even he himself doesn't know where he will lead the world. I can't let him do it. Therefore, I want to take a risk. A gamble that could ruin Yan's national fortune and my family's life. You go down. Also, pack up and prepare early, Yan Dan said wearily. Husband, Yue hasn't seen you for a long time. She misses you very much. Yen Dan nodded. At this moment, he had no spare time to consider anything else, even his beloved daughter. Ah! With a faint and imperceptible sigh, the beautiful face of the Crown Princess Yen showed a hint of sadness, and she turned around and left. Giant. Just as the Crown Princess Yen walked away, a dark figure appeared in the dim house behind Yen Dan. Help me find someone. Welcome all book enthusiasts to come and read. The latest, fastest, and most popular serialized works are all original at the starting point. Chapter 4. Brother is a low-key person. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. What kind of person is King Ying Ziyi of Qin? There has never been a unified view on this point from the debate 2,000 years ago to 2,000 years later. People who like him say he is talented and strategic, well-versed in heaven and earth, while those who dislike him say he is abusing public power, cruel and ungrateful. These mouthed cannons are of no use to Ying Ziyi now. In the palace hall, the king sitting on the throne looked at him like this. And Ying Ziyi also stared blankly at Ying Ziyi, his cheap old man. Of course, Ying Ziyi didn't just look, he clicked on the character detection program. But a message appeared on the holographic screen in front of me. Character name. Ying Ziyi character gender. Male character identity. King of Qin. Character level. Character evaluation. Hazard level. System prompt. The other party's identity is special, and the program cannot provide accurate evaluations. Ying Ziyi doesn't know what's going on. It seems that this is the first time this situation has occurred. Jianghu won't have a protagonist halo, will he? Ying Ziyi maliciously speculated. You are very special. On the throne, Ying Ziyi finally spoke up and said such a sentence. What? What's going on with this opening statement? Many people once advised me to kill you. What? Is this what I said to my own son? Ying Ziyi muttered inwardly. What exactly does this cheap old man mean? As for the meaning in the words, Ying Ziyi is not worried at all. Will Ying Ziyi ask for the opinions of the parties involved when he wants to kill someone? I don't understand, Ying Ziyi said in a tender voice. Don't you really understand? The autumn water of the Taoist heavenly sect takes ordinary people several years to glimpse the path. And you, in just a few days, have already reached this level of cultivation. Is it also a sin for my brother to be a martial arts genius? Ying Ziyi looked up at the sky at a 45-degree angle in lamentation. My son still doesn't understand. Ying Ziyi decided to continue pretending to be tender to the end. It's not a big deal to practice so quickly originally. With the vastness of the world, there are always extraordinary talents who are not born. However, just before you met Zhao Gao, your breath suddenly became introverted, as if it had never appeared before. This is a bit strange. I ask, how did you actually achieve it? This damn building master's level disguise program, I have set the level too low. While cursing, Ying Ziyi couldn't help but feel shocked, as it seemed that his every move was under the gaze of the king of Qin. However, why use such strict preventive measures against one's own son? Still a 6-year-old son. Ying Ziyi was puzzled and glanced at Ying Ziyi on the throne. Am I not my own? Immediately, this idea was thrown into the clouds. With Ying Ziyi's character, anyone who dares to wear such a hat on him, along with her 9 clans, may not live in this world. Unable to figure it out, Ying Ziyi stopped thinking and made an innocent statement. My dear, I still don't understand. In this situation, Ying Ziyi can't do without pretending. Anyway. You're not young anymore, I've found a teacher for you. You can go see him tomorrow. Ying Ziyi seemed to be no longer entangled in the previous topic and turned to say. My dear son, thank you, father. Ying Ziyi quickly left. The pressure from Ying Ziyi's domineering aura was too great for him. The next morning. Disgusting, who is it? Ying Ziyi, who was still asleep, murmured. Young master. Xiaomeng stood by and gently pushed him. Young master, it's getting late. It's time to go to class. In a daze, what caught my eye was the delicate face of Xiaomeng and Luoli. With slender arms and a slender waist, I really want to hug you. Then Ying Ziyi really picked it up. Come, hug. Collision, a huge noise echoed through the entire palace. Under the service of the palace maids, Ying Ziyi took off some damp clothes and changed into new ones. Looking at the girl with a blank face, she seemed to be angry. Are you angry? How could I be angry? Jiao Xiaomeng didn't admit. Just pouting and ignoring Ying Ziyi. What is it? Didn't everyone already have skin contact? Ying Ziyi secretly thought to himself. Young master, it's getting late. The teacher is already waiting. At this moment, the palace maid was reminding on the side. Let's go. He was dressed in a white robe, with a long sword in his hand, his back facing Ying Ziyi and his group, and facing a pool of clear water in front of him. The wind blew by, rolling up a pool of lake water, and the person's wide-sleeved robe danced with the wind. Ying Ziyi watched from behind, and the broad back of the person gave a very calm feeling, like a stream of stones. Ying Ziyi clicked on the character detection system. Character name. Gainye character gender. Male character identity. Ghost Valley disciple, Sword Saint character level. Top expert, first generation grandmaster, character evaluation. Exquisite swordsmanship, meticulous thinking, faithful to promises, possessing a calmness that is difficult for ordinary people to possess. Hazard level. S system prompt. Instead of being directly hostile, the owner should run away. Surprisingly, it's Gainye. The teacher that Ying Zheng helped him find was actually Gainye, a disciple of Ghost Valley and a descendant of the Dragon Sword. I'll pay my respects to Mr. Gainye. Ying Ziyi bowed forward and said. Have you finally arrived? Gainye turned around. When Ying Ziyi saw Gainye, a sense of oppression followed. Gainye did not do anything to Ying Ziyi, but Ying Ziyi instinctively felt the danger. This is the self-awareness of being a villain. To be honest, Gainye was an idealist, but he did not lack decisive strategies for killing. He can give up the trust of the king of Qin just because of a promise, and risk offending his political brother by running away with Jianghu's left-behind son. At that time, Qin had almost unified the 6 states. Within the 4 seas, brother Zheng is invincible. But Gainye was deeply trusted by the king of Qin and had a bright future. But without blinking his brow, he gave up all of this. This can only prove one thing: strength gains unsurprisingly strong. But it is different from Wei Zhuang's ruthless and decisive, domineering and intimidating power. Gainye's strength is introverted, but like light, he can continuously convey warmth to those around him, thus gaining the trust of others. Simply put, such a person would make every villain feel ashamed. Of course, it also includes Ying Ziyi, the future's largest villain in the world. Due to different attributes, there is a generation gap. With a generation gap, there are differences. What does Mr. Gainye want me to do? Ying Ziyi asked without hesitation. What do you want to learn? Gainye asked in a calm tone, without any emotion due to Ying Ziyi's rudeness. I heard that Mr. Zongheng is a disciple of Zongheng, a disciple of Gigu. Yes. Sun Bin, Pangwan is known for his military skills, and Su Qin and Zhang Yi are known for their eloquence. They are heroes of all dynasties, with one person defeating 1,000,000 soldiers. However, the master and his fellow disciples, Wei Zhuang, only rely on swordsmanship to dominate. May I ask, no matter how skilled the swordsmanship is, can you defeat 1,000 people? Ying Ziyi's words were quite harsh, implying that Gainye was not skilled in learning, but Gainye showed no anger. Are you truly unique? What kind of development is this? Ying Ziyi thought that Guy Nye would leave in anger, but his expectations fell through. If you want to learn the art of war or eloquence, I can entrust it to you, Guy Nye said slowly. I admire your demeanor, but why do you say I'm different? Ying Ziyi asked respectfully, reversing his previous arrogance. 6 years ago, a celestial anomaly occurred. Starry nights and flowing flames reflected the redness of most of the world. Among the various schools of thought, such as the Taoist and Yin-Yang schools, who were proficient in astrology, the elders in their sects had already been determined, and this anomaly would fall on Prince Xingzheng, the 14th Prince of Qin. In other words, your existence itself has enormous value and can arouse the interest of everyone, including all the countries and schools of thought. It is only because you are the son of the Qin king that no one dares to do anything to you for a while. Ying Ziyi stood there dumbfounded, not knowing what to say. Please tell me loudly, as a villain, what is the most important basic quality? Yes, it's low-key. Ying Ziyi has rich experience and has learned lessons from countless bloody and painful examples, mainly from major animations. He knew that all the villains ended up hanging up because they were too high profile. For example, Sosuke Aizen, who thought he had mastered the secret of Benju, dared to argue with Ichigo Kurosaki and became arrogant, so in the end, he could only squat on the throne. For example, Yuji Boban, who thought he had taken in 10-tailed beasts, dared to challenge the crown prince and his consort, arrogantly leading to him being stabbed in the end. For example, with so many prominent identities, such as Duo Flamengo, the 7 martial Cs under the king of Dressrosa, and the Heavenly Dragon Man, a dark manga would almost be the main character template. However, he dared to challenge Luffy and Luffy's friends, and was so arrogant that he was eventually punched that his grandmother didn't even know him. For example, Chenggu, relying on his invincibility, dares to have improper relationships with the female protagonists, openly disdains the pure hearts of many kind and pure audiences, criticizes the vast number of teenagers, and arrogantly excels in the max, so in the end, everyone knows. But now, Ying Ziyi is about to cry without tears. Can this TM still keep a low profile? Welcome all book enthusiasts to come and read. The latest, fastest, and most popular serialized works are all original at the starting point. Chapter 5. My Stupid Brother O. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ying Ziyi is very depressed. Ying Ziyi was quite depressed. Ying Ziyi was so frustrated that he was bored with the vast array of subsystem programs in the space of the big villain system, hoping to discover some surprises. What a broken system. Wall Dong. This program has undergone professional quality certification and is definitely not a broken program. Bullshit, look at this. The Gaussian equation theory export program is useful. The manufacturing process of a destroyer is simply impossible to find 100,000 tons of steel, let alone titanium alloys, crystal conduits, and so on, which have some rough uses. And this, the women's underwear manufacturing process. There are really many styles. Ying Ziyi flipped over and suddenly blushed, cursing and flipping down. Skin color changing system, used for hair. Hair transformation system, used for hair. The language transformation system is useful. Body fine tuning system, useful for hair. Wait. Ying Ziyi suddenly woke up, flipped forward, and laughed, ha ha ha. Finally, you can play happily again. Is this all usable now? Wall Dong. Master, you can't use these programs now. You can only use these subroutines when the master's level reaches fame. Why? Character Detection Program. Landlord Faction Detection Program. Landlord Level Disguising Program. Can't I use all these subroutines? Wall Dong. The OP is still in the beginner's protection period at this moment, and the difficulty of entering the OP's trap task is too high, so these incomplete versions of subroutines are included for use by the OP. When the OP completes the task or the beginner's protection period ends, these subroutines can no longer be used. How come there's still a novice protection period? When will it end? Wall Dong. At the level of the landlord, there is no automatic permission to know these contents. Okay, he knows the moral principles of this pit father's system, and it's useless to get angry. So he asked, how can we improve our level? Do we need to learn advanced martial arts? Wall thud. Others are, but the landlord is not. What does it mean? Wall thud. Master, please take a look. A screen appeared 1 meter ahead of Ying Ziyi, with a progress bar on it. At this moment, the progress was recorded as 1, and the color was red. What is this? Wall thud. This is your hatred value, Lord. Ying Ziyi felt a slight unease and continued to explain upon hearing the program of the pit father. As a major villain, the level of the OP depends on the level of hatred that needs to be raised. By increasing the level, you will receive a series of conveniences and more subroutines provided by this artificial intelligence. As for how to increase the level of hatred, you need to absorb the hatred of various characters in the Qin Dynasty's Mingyue world. The value of hatred depends on the level of hatred the opponent has towards you. Does this mean we're going to die? The higher the degree of death, the higher the level. Wall thud. The explanation is correct. So what if I don't level up? Wall Dong. This program kindly reminds you that hard level requirements are required in the main task ahead. If the level of the OP is not enough, they will be forcibly erased. I'll go, when will you become so cruel? Wall Dong. This is a built.in program mandatory setting, unrelated to this artificial intelligence. Hungry. Alright. Let me see how much hatred it takes to level up. It's okay if you don't look at it, but after seeing it, Ying Ziyi almost vomited blood. He found that rising from an unknown place of origin to a new level in the martial arts world only requires 100 hatred points, while rising from a new level in the martial arts world to a slightly famous level requires 1000 hatred points. And if there is no level increase afterwards, a 0 must be added after the required threat value. In the end, it took 1 billion hatred points to upgrade. What level of hatred does it take to achieve? Wall thud. It probably requires a hatred value quantified by an ordinary person's extreme anger. The era of the bright moon during the Qin Dynasty was probably around the end of the Qin Dynasty and the beginning of the Han Dynasty. Where can I find 1 billion people? Wall Dong. Good question from the OP. This system uses a hatred value color separation system, consisting of 7 colors. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, blue, and purple. The higher the level of a character, the higher their hatred value. Alternatively, for specific plot characters, the higher their hatred value. The hatred value observed by the OP requires approximately 1 billion red hatred values. Oh, that's it. Ying Ziyi breathed a sigh of relief. Let me ask, how many purple threat points do I need to level up to the highest level now? Wall thump. It takes about 100. It's only 100. Not much. Ying Ziyi patted his chest with a small hand, which was really great. Wall Dong. The purple threat value can only be generated by unparalleled experts, unparalleled in the world, and above. Their hatred towards you reaches its peak, and their quantified purple threat value is 1. How many peerless masters are there in this world? Wall Dong. According to this system's detection, there are no more than 5 fingers in this world who possess the identity level of an unparalleled expert, unparalleled in the world. Exiting the system space, the sky was already dark. Looking at the sparse scenery outside the hall and several maids, Ying Ziyi's already depressed mood became even more depressed now. This is not the big villain system. This is clearly a big kill system. You seem to be in a bad mood, Xiaomeng asked. Actually I want to be a good person, Ying Ziyi let out a long sigh. Just as Xiaomeng was unsure of everything. Outside the door, the voice of the attendants came. The 18 Prince Hu Hai is here. Hu Hai. 18 Prince Hu Hai was only a few months younger than him, and his age was almost the same. Right eye Jinpa, left eye ice blue. Hu Hai walked in with a pair of heterochromatic pupils and a gorgeous shoe brocade outfit. With a pure and flawless smile on her face, she said in a sweet and greasy voice, "Brother Ziyi, hello Hu Hai." When he saw Xiaomeng, he said again, "Master Xiaomeng, pay respects to Hu Hai." The other party nodded as a gesture of gratitude. As the future Qin too, his character and integrity are evident to all. When Gai Nie commented, he once said that his appearance was innocent, but his inner city was extremely deep. In addition, he joined forces with Zhao Gao to seize the throne, causing chaos in the world. It seems that it is not that simple. Ying Ziyi stared at him. This kid seems to be a villain too. What a nuisance. As a villain, although Ying Ziyi dislikes people like Gain, he hates his own kind even more. Brother Ziyi, I haven't been here for a long time. When will you accompany me out to play? What kind of innocence and naivety are they? They are all foxes from 1,000 years old, and they even play chat with me. Ying Ziyi muttered inwardly. Wall Dong. This system kindly reminds you that Hu Hai is a plot character with a yellow current hatred value and 2 yellow hatred values. 1 yellow hatred value can be exchanged for 2,000 red hatred values. That is to say, as long as you bully him, your brother can be promoted 2 levels. Wall thud. The landlord's explanation is correct. Ying Ziyi stared at Hu Hai, feeling a bit flustered as if he was just staring at the prey. Okay, brother, I'll play with you now. Ying Ziyi jumped over and said in a tender voice. My foolish little brother. Hate me. Hate me. Seeking recommendation, seeking collection. Welcome all book enthusiasts to come and read. The latest, fastest, and most popular serialized works are all original at the starting point. Chapter 6. I Am Still a Child. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Touch. When Hu Hai, with a blue and purple face, walked into his palace, he was no longer as cute and delicate as before. He looked angry and bumped into a palace maid who was preparing to leave with a tray for a candle. Don't you have eyes? Pull it out and fight. Yes, young master. The eunuch behind him stepped forward and grabbed the palace maid. Please spare your life, young master, please spare your life. The palace maid kowtowed and begged, fully understanding what would happen if she offended Hu Hai. Not yet. Hu Hai didn't pay attention and lay on his own bed. Young master, the order from the CRRC government has arrived. Let him in. Zhao Gao's own knowledge was very good, and he was sent by Ying Zheng to teach Hu Hai. Therefore, even at the peak of the moon, he was still able to enter and exit Hu Hai's palace openly. Zhao Gao walked in slowly and was surprised to see Hu Hai's appearance. Young master, what's wrong with you? It's not that bastard Ying Ziyi who deliberately played with me. Humph. Hu Hai slapped his little hand hard, becoming increasingly angry as he thought about it. Young master, calm down. Zhao Gao said calmly from the side. Calm down, how do you want me to calm down? It was you who told me earlier that he might become a big trouble for me in the future. You asked me to get close to him, get to know him, and let him relax his guard. But look, what's happening now? Ying Ziyi, I can't see clearly either. Young master, please be calm. I believe the king has already learned about this matter by this time. Father. That's right, let's see how the situation develops. Zhao Gaobing smiled coldly. Just as a conspiracy was plotting on one side of the Afang Palace, Ying Ziyi's laughter filled the entire space of the big villain. Ha ha ha. I could only hear that damn system say so. Wall Dong. Congratulations to the master, you have successfully advanced and your current level has just emerged from the martial arts world. I didn't expect that kid to have such a promising future. Bullying him twice will give him 100 points of hatred. Wall Dong. The current level of the OP is new to the martial arts world, and he has obtained the title Little Man Achieves Success. Do you want to unlock the corresponding subroutine? Little people achieve success. Do you always want to ruin the scenery on these days of universal celebration? Wall Dong. I'm sorry, forgive me for being an overly honest artificial intelligence. You're so shameless that it's really frustrating. Wall Thud. In this space where bad people dominate, being too honest always makes me annoying. Ying Ziyi realized that he couldn't compare to this artificial intelligence in terms of arguing. Forget it, unlock the subroutine. Wall Dong. The first level subroutine of emerging from the Jianghu has been successfully unlocked. Ying Ziyi discovered that the gray subroutine that had just emerged from the martial arts world now appeared in golden font. He searched and discovered a useful subroutine. Hate Value Display Program. Its function can be opened at any time to observe the character's expected hatred values and their qualities. That is to say, Ying Ziyi can always observe the hatred value that a character should have from the outside world. Wall Dong. As the level is unlocked, the skill level that the OP can learn increases accordingly. Now, intermediate level human level skills can be learned. According to the existing world energy analysis, this system divides the skill level into 3 levels: human, earth, and sky. Additionally, the human and earth levels each have 3 levels. Wait. Isn't the Wan Chuan Qiu Shui advanced technique of the Taoist heavenly sect? Ying Ziyi realized something was wrong and asked. Wall Dong. During the beginner's protection period, there is no limit to the level of cultivation for the first time. Wanchuan Qiushui belongs to the earth level advanced cultivation. I'll go. Why is this system so generous? It's completely different from the previous style. Ying Ziyi whispered. Wall Dong. This system kindly reminds you that due to the owner's limited level, even if Wanchuan Qiushui cultivates, it cannot be used freely. Forcefully running it before reaching a prestigious level may lead to explosion and death. Ying Ziyi remained silent. Wall Dong. What's wrong with the master? Don't be disappointed, master. Are you still there? Master, don't take it too hard. Ying Ziyi smiled and said, I'll just say it. That's what suits your dad's style. It scared me, I thought you suddenly changed your personality. Wall Thump. In the palace of the king of Qin. Ying Ziyi was called into the palace by Jianghu. The king of Qin sat high on the throne and looked at Ying Ziyi, asking, Did you hurt Hu Hai while playing with him a few days ago? Has this kid come to report? Ying Ziyi secretly said. That's not right. How could Zheng have the leisure to meddle in such matters? I don't understand. So Ying Ziyi honestly pretended to be crazy and foolish again. Do you really not understand? Ying Zheng waved his hand and all the eunuch guards around him withdrew. After that, dozens of black shadows rushed out from various corners of the empty hall. The original positions of these shadows seemed unlikely to have anyone appear, but they happened to appear there. Ying Ziyi glanced at them and could see that these guards were highly skilled, at least at the level of experts. They should be the legendary shadow guards. They wear good soft armor, but do not carry weapons. One by one, they walked out of the main hall and surrounded the entire palace, guarding against others from approaching. Okay. Since you don't want to talk about this matter, let's talk about other things, father and son. Jianghu was so kind, and Ying Ziyi couldn't believe it unconsciously. Do you think that among the 6 countries in the world, which one is the Great Qin disaster? Military and state affairs, with Prime Minister Li Si in the text and General Wang Jian in the military. It seems that my father should not ask me. Tong Yen Wuji, why don't you joke about it? Jianghu smiled. You read it right, Jianghu, who has always been strict with his words and smiles, actually smiled. He actually smiled, and it was quite good. Looking. If this scene were seen by a group of guards, civil and military officials, 3 aunts and 6 grandmothers, concubines and children outside the palace, I don't know how many Qins would be shocked. Han Fei was the culmination of the legalist school, but he was a theorist. Ying Ziyi, on the other hand, was a practitioner of Han Fei's theory and achieved great success, which is best demonstrated by the current Qin kingdom and the future Qin Empire. Legalism is one lineage, and the power of magic is integrated into one, using the strictness of criminal law to establish the power of the royal way. Ying Ziyi is more concerned about the structure and implementation of the law. In the eyes of everyone, he is not an easily approachable person, nor is he a kind person. It seems that not saying it is no longer enough. Ying Ziyi secretly said, even if Brother Zheng is fighting like this, he won't be able to do it if he doesn't fight. Moreover, with Ying Ziyi's dark psychological thinking, Zheng Jiyi's actions were equivalent to being caught by him. If Jianghu is not satisfied tonight, his future life will not be easy. Chu. Ying Ziyi said without even thinking. Why? With a vast territory and numerous military armor, after the Battle of Chongping, only Chu, one of the 6 eastern countries, had the ability to compete with our great Qin for dominance. That's right. Ying Ziyi nodded, which was the consensus of all the generals in court now. He continued, so how do you think we should deal with the state of Chu? Don't worry about it. Oh. Why is this? Now that South Korea has been destroyed, the Prince of Zhao, Jia Yuan, fled to Dai County, which is not a threat. Our future enemies in the great Qin Dynasty will be in Wei. If we take Wei, we will gain the benefits of the 3 Qin dynasties. Behind it is Chu, where the ruler of Chu is weak and the ministers are strong, and there is constant conflict. We have more than enough self-protection, but not enough progress, so we will not send troops to Wei. Therefore, after receiving the Yen Governor Kang, our great Qin can directly take Wei. When we advance to the Central Plains, the world is actually in the hands of our great Qin. Not bad, not bad. Er's words are not inferior to those of a good general in the army. It's ridiculous that those civil and military ministers of Chu are not as good as a 6-year-old child, said Jianghu disdainfully. Ying Ziyi, it seems that the senior officials of the state of Chu also have the eyeliner of the political brother. Not bad, I am very satisfied with your answer. Go ahead. What reward do you want? Jianghu restrained his smile and returned to the Qin king, who was calm in anger and joy. This. Ying Ziyi summed up for a moment and finally said, I want one person. Who? Gai Nye. After a moment of hesitation, Zheng Jiyi's expression froze and he said, okay. Thank you, father. Just as Ying Ziyi was about to leave, Jianghu suddenly said, all right. You're already quite old. This time we're attacking Yen, why don't you go with the army? What? Ying Ziyi was taken aback for a moment, but I'm still a child. Zheng Jiyi's eyes flashed with brilliance, and Ying Ziyi swore to see a hint of restrained smile on his face, but it passed in a blink of an eye. It doesn't matter, if I could counselor military affairs earlier, would it be better to share my worries with me earlier? Watching Ying Ziyi walk out dejected, Ying Ziyi smiled and said, with Gai Nye here, safety can be guaranteed. But is this Ziyi a disaster or a blessing for me, Qin? Seeking recommendation, seeking collection. Welcome all book enthusiasts to come and read. The latest, fastest, and most popular serialized works are all original at the starting point. Chapter 7. Jianghu Status. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ying Ziyi is quite excited. This is his first time going out with the army. A large army marched in unison, with horses and carriages like dragons. What a spectacular sight. Under the leadership of General Wang Jian, a 50,000 elite army from the Qin capital of Xianyang was launched and rushed to the front line. And the huge and luxurious carriage that Ying Ziyi was riding stood out in this vast procession. Ying Ziyi is a very special presence in the military and holds any position, so he does not have to be responsible for specific matters, which is very awkward in a highly hierarchical military. However, being revered by Prince Qin, the generals had to show their due attitude towards him. The original order of the King of Qin was to familiarize Ying Ziyi with military affairs within the army. Qin's law is strict, even if the opponent is only a 6-year-old child, it cannot tolerate a group of generals such as Wang Jian not taking it seriously. So in summary, Ying Ziyi is a soy sauce maker, but he is a high-ranking soy sauce maker. Ying Ziyi stayed peacefully in his large carriage covered in a fine velvet blanket, eating the bright red grapes from the western regions, enjoying themselves very much. Gai Nye was riding a horse to guard outside, while Xiaomeng was in the carriage. Looking at Ying Ziyi, who was somewhat lazy, she asked, "Aren't you worried?" "What?" "When a large army rises, the outcome is unpredictable. If you are defeated, your special identity will bear the brunt, and you will be the target of various countries' feudal lords and various schools of thought competing for it. Because of a vague divination, you all regarded me as Tang Monk's flesh." "Who is Tang Monk?" Ying Ziyi's subconscious words were completely unaware that there was no profession as a monk nowadays, let alone Tang Monk. "A bald man," Ying Ziyi said awkwardly. "Oh." Xiaomeng didn't bother and said, "Do you know that Sanglong's 7 mansions? That legend can control the power of the world." Ying Ziyi said, but it was mostly mocking. "Do you not believe it? If there really is such power, why did Zhou Tianzi lose his country? Why did the world dispute for hundreds of years?" Ying Ziyi sneered at the common scams in martial arts novels. "I think it is precisely because of the existence of the Sanglong Qixio that the already chaotic world is made even more noisy." Xiaomeng was taken aback for a moment, then thought for a moment, and shook her head again. The Sanglong's 7 mansions do indeed exist, but the secret behind them is unknown, because the people who control the royal family of the Sanglong's 7 mansions have never gathered. But that's not what I want to say. Ying Ziyi raised his head and looked at Xiaomeng's serious appearance, completely different from a young girl. He was a little surprised by what was inside this little lowly's head. He picked up a grape and handed it over. After being fed by Ying Ziyi for so many days, Xiaomeng has become accustomed to his actions, so he took the grapes from his hand in one gulp. Yao Yao swallowed them and continued, "The starry night and the flowing fire have turned most of the world red. Even our sect or the most skilled diviner in the yin-yang family cannot determine what this means. The world has been in turmoil for hundreds of years, and it has reached the time for unification. Among the various countries in the world, our sect is optimistic about Qin. Your father is a very brave person, and the world should be unified in his hands. Therefore, our sect takes advantage of the situation and has never been able to achieve unification. I have done actions that go against this. The yin-yang family, on the other hand, was even more radical and defected to the state of Qin, placing myself opposite the other countries in the Kanto region. Ying Ziyi picked up another grape and stuffed it into Xiaomeng's mouth, asking, "So what?" Xiaomeng bit on the grape, hesitating for a moment, but ultimately said, "But this is just one of them. According to the astrological revelation obtained from our sect's divination, after Qin unified the world, disputes will become even more intense, and the chaotic era will not end. But since the night of the raging fire, the astrological signs have changed and become very blurred. This means that you may be the one who can change the world. When did my brother's status in the martial arts world reach such a high level that he could be placed in the same position as Sanglong Qixio when I went? Is it really a little exciting to think about it? Do you believe it?" Ying Ziyi smiled. "I didn't believe it before." Ying Ziyi stuffed 2 more grapes into Xiaomeng's mouth and said, "Now. I still don't believe it now." Jiao Xiaomeng didn't turn her head, only to hear her say something vaguely. Although Qin's recent invasion of Yen shocked the world, what Ying Ziyi did not know was that his existence was even more remarkable. Yin family. In the vast and mysterious palace like a star, the Eastern Emperor stood at the end, his eyes hidden in a black mask looking at the graceful woman in front of him, the moon god. "You are still one step behind," said Emperor Tai in a voice that seemed somewhat regretful. Ha, ha, ha. As the moon god walked step by step, he had exhausted all his strength. At this moment, she was half bent, her fair face under the light veil already covered in fine sweat, panting slightly, and soothing her resentment. "Only a few people can stand in your current position, even if there is still a gap. But I still failed, compared to my sister," said the moon god reluctantly. "Yes, you're not Yen Fei, so you failed. But also because you're not Yen Fei, that's why you're standing in your current position." Emperor Tai's words were not understood by the moon god, and Emperor Tai had no intention of continuing to explain. "You go down. Ying Ziyi has already left Xianyang and is on his way to Yen State. This time, you can go there." "Yes, Your Excellency Dong Huan." Farmhouse, Shenongtang. 1,000 people face 1,000 faces, and the Zhu family continues this divine farming order. The face mask on his face turns blue, red, and purple, indicating his mood, plot, and struggle. The Zhu family walked back and forth, while a middle-aged man across from him calmly drank. The man had a dignified appearance, now leaning sideways, picked up a wine jug, and poured the wine into his mouth as if pouring it upside down. Looking at the busy Zhu family, the eyebrows tilted slightly, showing a somewhat cynical and unrestrained attitude. "I'm talking about Brother Liu Bang, when is it? You still have the mood to drink some leisure wine here." The Xiaokui issued a secret order from the Shennong tribe, and the 6 farmhouses captured the 14th son of the Qin king, Ying Ziyi. "Isn't it the Shennong order? Why is Zhu's brother so flustered? How could this make me not panic? Did Xia Kuei feel confused and openly provoke Ying Zheng?" Chongping Jun. Liu Bang smiled and said a name, but did not continue. In fact, when the Zhu family reached this name, they had already stopped walking back and forth. He pondered carefully, and the spectrum on his face no longer changed so dramatically. "Are you saying that this is all for the sake of the young master's support to Su?" "That's right. According to my underling's eyeliner, the other 5 farmhouses have moved. So what should we do? Work without effort. Good strategy. It's rumored that Xing Qi has already taken action this time. Let's stand on the sidelines and watch a big show. Ha ha ha. Gathering and dispersing quicksand. There is a shark-toothed sword stationed in Weizhuang, sitting on a large stone. With flowing white long hair and eagle-like sharp eyes, Mo Qilin stared at the mysterious young man hidden in the darkness before him. Ying Ziyi, the 14th son of King Qin, has already set off with the army to Yen. It has been found that there are signs of mobilizing troops from both the Mo and Nong families, preparing to go to Yen. The other 100 schools of thought and various countries' forces may not willingly feel lonely. Yo! What exactly is the origin of this Ying Ziyi? She can stir up half of the people in the martial arts world, causing chaos in the world. At this time, Sister Qi Lian was no longer the Korean Princess Hongmian. After wandering in the martial arts world for several years, I have shed the youthful and innocent qualities of a girl, and now possess the mature and charming qualities of a woman. Speaking also became more explicit. Interesting. Bai Feng's lightness skills were unparalleled, and she tapped her toes on a nearby branch, her body agile. He was in the quicksand and was originally tasked with reconnaissance, so he often stayed at high altitudes. At this moment, hearing the conversation not far away, I didn't feel it and said a word. "He's an outlier," Wei Zhuang said in a deep voice. "Strange numbers?" Sister Qi Lian asked in confusion. "That's right, that's an anomaly that could change the world. Zhuang, should we go to Yendi then? I believe that fate is in one's own hands. Only the weak will pray for the unpredictable fate. In addition, during this trip, Gai Nye served as the guard of Ying Ziyi, added Mo Qilin. Gai Nye, are you still the same? Wei Zhuang clenched shark's teeth with one hand and stood up. We're going to Yen State. Welcome all book enthusiasts to come and read. The latest, fastest, and most popular serialized works are all original at the starting point. Chapter 8. I Want to Be a Shoulder. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The wind rises in all directions, and the clouds move in all directions. At this moment, Ying Ziyi, who was completely unaware of the arrival of trouble, stayed in Wang Jian's tent and knelt beside the general Wang Jian, listening to a group of generals discussing the military situation. How should Yen Kingdom fight? Ying Ziyi looked at the passionate expression of the generals in the tent and yawned boredly. Since the reform of Emperor Shang, the national strength of the state of Qin has increased significantly, with soldiers fearless of death and generals fearless of war. Although the total military strength is smaller than that of the 6 countries in Shandong, the organization and mobilization ability of the army, as well as the combat power of soldiers, cannot be compared. As long as military achievements are made, even a commoner in the state of Qin may become a nobleman, let alone a group of generals present. Its enthusiasm for attacking cities and removing strongholds is not comparable to other countries. After the conquest of Zhao, the army of Qin had already approached Yen. In addition, with the troops and horses brought by Wang Jian from Xianyang, there is a total of 100,000 troops that Wang Jian can use at this moment. The opponent is only located in a remote area, the weakest among the 7 countries of Yen. Although the number of our own soldiers is not as large as the opponent, the momentum of victory and defeat is already very obvious. In the eyes of the present generals, it was easy to break through Jidu and annihilate the state of Yen. For such a matter, Ying Ziyi was uninterested and looked disinterested. The generals present couldn't help but sigh slightly when they saw it. It's a bit difficult to make a 6-year-old understand this. Young master, what do you think? Wang Jian asked politely after some discussion. I thought Ying Ziyi would say some cutthroat things, but he shook his head and said, I thought what the generals discussed was wrong. This military strategy cannot be implemented. Although it has been observed through the system that the hatred values of the generals present are all high, and their condition is also good. But Ying Ziyi did not have any intention of pulling their hatred. On the battlefield, the ones who cannot be offended the most are these generals. Wang Jian is truly a general in the army. Despite hearing Ying Ziyi's joking words, he did not hastily handle them and asked seriously, what does this mean, young master? Our great Qin army is powerful throughout the world, and before the troops leave Zhao, the capital of Yen is already in fear. It is feared that in the near future, the state of Yen will seek peace, and seeking peace will inevitably cede territory. If we can defeat people's troops without fighting, Father Wang will not mobilize a large army again. Ying Ziyi's words sparked heated discussions among the generals present, even Wang Jian fell into contemplation. Although Prince Shi of Yen is cowardly and incompetent, his younger brother Yan Chunjun is also a villain. However, Prince Dan of Yen has always had a rough idea, would he watch his country fall? The speaker was a colonel who was not prominent in this large tent, so Ying Ziyi did not notice him at first. At this point, it seemed that the hatred value on the captain's body was actually green. Such high quality is clearly not something that an ordinary colonel can possess. Who are you? Ying Ziyi asked. In the next chapter of Han, see young master. At this time, Zhang Han was still just a teenager, but holding the position of colonel, it shows that he was young and promising. Wang Jian nodded, confirming Zhang Han's opinion. General Wang also believes that the Yen kingdom will fight. Ying Ziyi asked at this moment. I think so. Okay, General, how about we make a bet? Wang Jian looked at Ying Ziyi in surprise and also became interested. How can I bet? If I lose, I will lead the old general's horse for a year. The respect of the young master, I dare not. Wang Jian arched his hand. The old general is highly respected and has been riding horses for decades for me in the great Qin Dynasty. How could he not bear my childish reason of leading horses? Ying Ziyi had great respect for Wang Jian in his words, and when Ying Ziyi, the general of the scriptures present, burst into laughter. Wang Jian also smiled. It seemed that he was also very happy in his heart. After all, what children say, although immature, is also easy to believe. Ying Ziyi truly respects him. If the young master wins, what should I do? 100,000 soldiers listened to my orders until they captured Jidu. Ying Ziyi's words could be described as stirring up 1,000 waves with just one stone. Wang Jian's face changed and he said seriously, "Young master, this General Wang has given me 100,000 troops, so I can't tolerate any child's play." Ha ha ha. The old general is afraid that I will bury 100,000 soldiers in this Yan territory. Ying Ziyi smiled. This I dare not. After all, Ying Ziyi is a young master of Qin, and he can also lead a large army in theory. However, given his age, it's not good to say too much. No, you can't. General, you are highly respected and promise 1,000 gold. You cannot joke. Ying Ziyi used his age advantage and began to play tricks. As he spoke, tears even began to come out. I didn't agree at first. Looking at the somewhat out-of-control scene, Wang Jian couldn't help but say, why not report this matter to the king and let him make a decision? In Wang Jian's opinion, this is the best solution. I can't manage you, kid. Let me manage you. That's all I can do. Ying Ziyi sighed and wiped his face with his sleeve, returning to his original appearance and yawning. After Ying Ziyi's commotion, this military conference cannot be held either. Anyway, everything that needs to be discussed has also been discussed. The generals dispersed one after another, and Ying Ziyi bowed to Wang Jian and left. Young master. Zhang Han stopped Ying Ziyi just after he paid the bill. It's Captain Zhang Han. Ying Ziyi said. I have something unknown, please teach me, young master. What's up? Just now, the young master said that if this bet is successful, Wang Jian's old general will entrust 100,000 troops to the young master. But if the young master wins and Yan seeks peace, won't this war not be able to be won? How can we break through Jidu? Zhang Han asked. Sure enough, his thinking was agile. The generals present earlier did not even consider this factor, even Wang Jian was the same. Or rather, even if Wang Jian noticed, he didn't have time to ask because of Ying Ziyi's deceit. What you just said is quite right. Prince Dan of Yan has a rough plan. Under his rule, the territory is well organized, the people are rich, and the army is strong. However, if Yan seeks peace, do you think he will not move a bit? What does the young master mean? Haha. Ying Ziyi didn't answer, turned around and left, leaving behind a mysterious figure. In the memory of Ying Ziyi, in another time and space, after many excellent literary officials and generals in Xianyang were slaughtered by the 2 and 5 sons Zhao Gao and Hu Hai, the black sheep, he became the last pillar left in the state of Qin. Suppressed the Chen Xingwu Guang uprising, repeatedly defeated the armies of various countries, and executed Xiang Yu's uncle Xiang Liang. Although Jiulu was defeated by Xiang Yu, the main force of the 200,000 Qin army was not damaged and could still resist the alliance of feudal lords outside the Hanggu Pass, preserving the state of Qin. However, at this critical moment, Zhao Gao, these 2 or 5 young men, cut off his food and supplies as well as his way back. As a last resort, he made peace with Xiang Yu. Afterwards, Liu Bang invaded Xianyang and the state of Qin was destroyed. In this time and space, Ying Ziyi doesn't know to what extent this Zhang Han can achieve, but just relying on him as a young man, he has a green hatred value, which is not bad. If possible, Ying Ziyi wanted to include him under his command, so naturally he had to pretend to be X in front of him. A few days later, Wang Jian received a reply from the king of Qin. When he opened the red dragon scroll, his chin also startled. Because only one character was written on the silk, but if it weren't for this silk being escorted by the most elite golden fire cavalry of the empire, and the unique seal of the red dragon scroll being intact, Wang Jian almost thought that this was a strategy used by Yan state to investigate this incident. After careful inspection and finding no errors, Wang Jian was very angry. How could the king of Qin be so playful and give the lives of 100,000 soldiers to a 6-year-old child? However, Qin's laws are strict, and the king's mandate is like a mountain. Quickly, Wang Jian told Ying Ziyi, who was fishing by the river, about this matter. Ying Ziyi chuckled inwardly and said, "Brother, you're going to be the leader." Seeking recommendation, seeking collection. Welcome all book enthusiasts to come and read. The latest, fastest, and most popular serialized works are all original at the starting point. Chapter 9. Love and Kill. You are listening at novelfull.audio. As expected by Ying Ziyi, the state of Yan still sent envoys to seek peace. And Ying Ziyi also gained command of a 100,000-strong army. Just yesterday, Wang Jian handed over the tiger talisman that commanded the army to Ying Ziyi in front of the generals in the commander's tent. Of course, the specific matters are still entrusted to Wang Jian and his subordinates for management. Ying Ziyi takes Xiaomeng and Gai Nye out to play every day. However, today, Gain asked him for a day off. Mr. Gai Nye, who has always been dedicated, is taking a leave of absence. Ying Ziyi felt very strange about this, but he had no intention of delving deeper. This is a lush forest, with winding roads and overlapping trees and camphor trees. If not familiar, it is easy to get lost in it. You're here. Gai Nye came with a sword in hand, flipped open the branches of an old tree, and walked into the open space between the forests. There are already people waiting. The other party was dressed in white and wore a black scarf. The sword in hand is shorter than a regular standard sword. What you're going to do won't succeed, Gain said, seemingly understanding the meaning of the invitation. How can we know if we will succeed if we don't do it? The other person is very handsome, with a sunny and handsome look like a big boy. At this moment, his face was gloomy, with a few light-colored creases on his forehead, as if he were an elderly person who had gone through vicissitudes of life. Gai Nye had known him for a long time and remembered the boy in his memory. Compared to his current decadent appearance, Gai Nye sighed and said, "Jianghu, assassinating the king of Qin is impossible. You should know that Qin's rule over the world is the trend. The Mahist school's move is like hitting a stone with an egg and causing endless trouble. This kind of thing doesn't matter. Whether Yingzheng is the savior of chaotic times or the demon god of destruction. It has nothing to do with me." Jianghu smiled, perhaps to ease the atmosphere with his old friend, but his smile was very forced. "I only know about that guy Yingzheng, who stole my beloved Li Ji. He is my brother's enemy. For any reason, I must go to the state of Qin this time. I knew I couldn't do it. So, why did I come this time?" Gain sighed and asked. "It's my son, Tianming. If this fails, then Tianming will entrust it to you." Jianghu looked at Gai Nye with a hopeful expression in his eyes. "Okay. I promise you," Gai Nye said solemnly. "Ha ha ha." Jianghu smiled and put his sword on his shoulder, then turned around and left. "With your promise, I can rest assured." When Gai Nye walked out of the forest, he was ready to head towards Qin camp. But it was discovered that Ying Ziyi was holding a specially made short bow, preparing to enter the forest. Xiaomeng followed him and helped him hold a pot of feather arrows. "Young master, how could you be here?" "Hunting." Ying Ziyi smiled, "It's perfect. Let's go together." Gai Nye glanced at Ying Ziyi and remained silent, silently following him. Hunting, hunting. Ying Ziyi jumped into the forest, and Xiaomeng, holding an arrow pot, hurriedly followed behind him. Pop. Another blow failed and startled away a wild rabbit. Ying Ziyi's short bow lacked strength and was specially crafted by generals in the army. The range is only 20 steps, and beyond 20 steps, the arrow is powerless to drop. Oh, I missed the shot again. Ying Ziyi felt a bit disheartened and withdrew his short bow. Stop playing, take a break. As he spoke, he sat under a big tree without hesitation. Gai Nye and Xiaomeng exchanged a glance and stood on either side of him. Mr. Gai Nye, sometimes I feel strange. The leaders of the Zongheng school have only accepted 2 disciples, one is the Zong and the other is the Heng. Although the 2 were on a blind date, they had to fight each other in the end. Only by determining the strongest one between them can they represent the Ghost Valley and win the whole world. However, in today's world, the Zongjian and Hengjian are on par with the world, and it seems that there is no result between you and Wei Zhuang. Gai Nye remained silent for a long time, and suddenly heard the disturbance of the branches. Who? Because he gave up. The sound had already arrived, but not yet. White feathers drifted and filled the entire forest. On the high branches, there is a person standing in the air. The young man held a white feather in his hand, glanced at Ying Ziyi, and then fixed his gaze on Gai Nye. On the earth, venomous snakes surged, wolf packs emerged in all directions, and Red Lian and the Wolf King emerged from the left and right edges of the forest. The Wushuang ghost jumped off a tall giant tree, and its violent force shook the earth. A black shadow emerged from the forest. With white hair fluttering and long robes dancing, Wei Zhuang walked forward with a majestic aura, but his eagle-like eyes were only fixed on Gai Nye. I really caught a group of big fish. Wei Zhuang's style is really impressive. Ying Ziyi secretly said. Ma Zai appeared everywhere, and the boss was always the last to arrive. You are Wei Zhuang. Wei Zhuang struggled to move his eyes away from Gai Nye and looked at Ying Ziyi lying under the big tree. You are Ying Ziyi. It's me. Ying Ziyi smiled and closed his eyes, seemingly indifferent to his current state. Wei Zhuang was somewhat surprised. When he first appeared, he had already unleashed a powerful aura. It is definitely not easy to maintain such a state under his aura. Aren't you afraid when tigers and wolves surround you? Wei Zhuang asked. Compared to me, there are people here who make you care more. Right. You are truly unique. Mr. Wei Zhuang has always had great ambitions, why not serve the state of Qin? Wei Zhuang pulled out his sharp teeth and aimed his sword at Gai Nye. It's impossible for me and him to play in the same country, he said, that's really a pity. Ying Ziyi sighed. Young master. Ying Ziyi waved his hand and said, if you want to fight, go somewhere else. Don't hinder me from sleeping here. Gai Nye looked at Wei Zhuang and did not pull out his sword. Now, I have no reason to draw my sword against you, he said, I have been waiting for this day for a long time. There is always a showdown between us. If you have no reason, I will give you one. Wei Zhuang withdrew sharp teeth and ordered the horse beside him, at all costs, capture and kill Ying Ziyi. Oh my, I'll go. What are these 2 buddies grinding and chattering about? Ying Ziyi opened his eyes and glanced at Wei Zhuang. What is the rhythm of love and killing, this eyebrow, this eye, this hair? Bai Feng was already in front of him, watching as the flood of disaster was about to pour on him, but Ying Ziyi was not in a hurry. You always get into trouble like this. Xiaomeng let out a slight sigh, her palm extended flat, and her energy surged, turning into small water marks and attacking Bai Feng. Bai Feng Ben was moving at high speed in mid-air, realizing something was wrong. With a frown on his eyebrows, he immediately changed his body method and narrowly avoided Xiaomeng's attack. There's also a master. It's just a little girl, Qi. The other 3 heavenly kings of flowing sand, looked surprised. Qi Lian glanced at Wei Zhuang, but found that he had no expression on his face, as if he had already noticed it. Taoist Heavenly Sect. Have you, who claim to be transcendent, also started to venture into worldly affairs now? Are you intolerant of the hardships in the mountains? Wei Zhuang sneered. Qi Lian is very familiar with Wei Zhuang. She knows that Wei Zhuang's sarcastic tone is already treating the other party as an opponent. At least, it is a goal worth treating with caution. She couldn't help but become even more cautious about Xiaomeng's attitude. Everything is natural, there's no need to forcefully divide the mountains up and down, outside the world and beyond. Xiaomeng spoke. The words spoken by such a sweet and lovely little loli were icy. Is that right? Wei Zhuang surprisingly did not refute Xiaomeng, perhaps because he believed that words were useless and only saw the main chapter in his hands. At the moment when it is about to trigger and start fighting. Virtual shadows stack up, and from a distant place, a person gracefully comes. The outer cover is a light blue short robe, with a Shanghai blue and deep blue alternating waistband, and a wide-sleeved violet embroidered long skirt is worn inside. The moon god arrived at the center of both. Surprisingly, people from the Yin-Yang family have also come. The moon god bowed to Ying Ziyi lying under the tree. See you, young master. Your Excellency the Eastern Emperor asked me to inquire about the Marquis on your behalf. Is the Eastern Emperor Tai? Murmured Ying Ziyi. This mysterious and unpredictable boss, Ying Ziyi, has always been very wary. Gai Nye, are you still the same timid and weak? Seeing that his side was already at a disadvantage, Wei Zhuang paid no attention and still invited each other to fight, but his senior brother remained indifferent from beginning to end. Don't you come out yet? Finally, as Wei Zhuang was about to be mercilessly abandoned by his senior brother, he let out a desperate cry, from the perspective of Ying Ziyi. Collision, a big tree embraced by 4 people was overturned by a sword, and then a strong man appeared, carrying a huge sword in his hand and covered in scars and tattoos, walking step by step. It is the Black Swordsman who wins 7. The Wushuang Ghost, one of the 4 heavenly kings of flowing sands, is famous for its immense power, but compared to it, it is not just inferior. Behind Xingqi, the trees are disturbed. All present were experts, and just by listening to the footsteps behind them, one could tell that the opponent had at least a few hundred people. The main leader has finally arrived. Ying Ziyi said. Seeking recommendation, seeking collection, welcome all book enthusiasts to come and read. The latest, fastest, and most popular serialized works are all original at the starting point. 10. In Chapter 10, I mean you're all spicy chicken. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The main leader has arrived. Being the true ruler is not necessarily a victory over 7. Ying Ziyi didn't go straight to shoulder the top-tier meat tea like Xingqi. Of course, he has to carry the hundreds of elite rural children behind Xingqi. When hundreds of children from rural families arrived at the center of the forest, it was as noisy as a vegetable market. Instantly lowered the level of this turbulent and skilled battle scene. Ha ha ha. Ying Ziyi, I didn't expect us to ambush here long ago. Are you scared enough to wet your pants? These hundreds of rural disciples, according to the flag, should be disciples of Lisan Hall. When their leader Tian Meng proudly walked out of the circle surrounded by his younger brother and arrived at the center of the forest, his small eyes were now wide open, his mouth wide open, as if he could swallow an apple. There are clearly 4 factions on the field. Gai Nye, Xiaomeng, the moon god, vaguely led by Ying Ziyi, who was mesmerizing under the tree. The scattered quicksand in Weizhuang is on one side. Xingqi's solo sword is clearly distinct from the rural disciples of the Lisan Hall, and it seems that he can also be considered on the same side. The remaining are the disciples of the Lisan Hall led by Tian Meng and his second brother Tian Hu. Unlike Tian Meng's subordinates, Tian Meng can also be promoted to the rank of first-class expert. He could tell that there was hardly anyone on the field that he could provoke. Zongheng Shuangxiong, the moon god, the right protector of the Yin-Yang family, and Xingqi, who has been standing on the side to draw a clear line with him. What kind of formation is this TM? But his subordinates around him didn't see it that way, thinking that the quiet scene in the forest at the moment was because their arrival had intimidated everyone present. So their arrogance grew even more arrogant. Look, those two girls are really pretty. We'll have a good time later. Referring to Moon God and Red Lien, who are those two fools with swords? Referring to Gai Nye and Wei Zhuang, there's a group of idiots, your grandfather's here, why don't you get out of here? Referring to the three heavenly kings of flowing sand, I'll go, these guys are really talented. Ying Ziyi was shocked, the efficiency of pulling hatred is really high. Watching everyone's gaze towards Tian Meng filled with hostility and a cold killing intent, it was obvious that everyone regarded him as a rising star. Tian Meng's body was covered in fine sweat. Shut up! Tian Meng shouted with all his strength. His face was bulging with veins and his face turned pale, obviously angered by his pig teammate. The scene instantly quieted down. The scene fell silent, but Tian Meng didn't know what to do. He is neither in nor out at this moment, feeling extremely awkward. Mr. Wei Zhuang. Ying Ziyi stood up and arched his hand. What's up? At present, there are many young people gathered here. Why don't you and Mr. Gai Nye choose another day to fight? Ying Ziyi suggested. Wei Zhuang snorted without hesitation. Under the speckled sunlight, the forest in the distance is reflected in a black ink color. From deep in the forest, a black mist quietly moved towards Wei Zhuang's side. In the sparsity, the sunlight shone and a boy with a blurry face appeared before everyone's eyes. Mo Qilin whispered a few words in Wei Zhuang's ear. Wei Zhuang's expression changed and he turned around before leaving. Senior brother, we will meet again. Next time, one of us will eventually fall. Seeing the crowd of quicksand leave, Tian Meng's pressure suddenly dropped and he breathed a sigh of relief. Watching the quicksand drift away, Ying Ziyi also breathed a sigh of relief. He stood up and walked to the center of the forest with a somewhat surprised expression from the crowd. You are Tian Meng, the leader of the Lieshan Hall. It's me, I've been looking for you for a long time. Oh, why? Ying Ziyi smiled. Don't you know you're very valuable? Even a head on your neck is worth thousands of dollars, let alone alive. You won't be the only one who wants my brain today, and tomorrow won't be the only one. But with you alone, can we succeed? Ying Ziyi smiled, very heartily. From the perspective of system space, Tian Meng successfully lifted the hatred value on his body. However, Ying Ziyi was a bit disappointed. Although Tian Meng's level was clearly a first-class expert, arrogant over the others, his hatred value was only green. It's really garbage. Are you provoking me? Tian Meng's face became very gloomy. Why bother talking to him? Catch this little rabbit and teach him a lesson. Tian Hu, with his red hair, was quite impatient and had already drawn his sword. Shut up. Tian Meng was not foolish, he was still estimating the form in front of him. In fact, the competition within the 6 rural families with 100,000 disciples is very fierce. No one who can sit on the throne of the main hall will be a fool. But his younger brother Tian Hu is different, with a violent personality and a bit silly and rough. Ah. I think you misunderstood, Ying Ziyi said, his momentum slightly weakened. Xiaoming felt a bit strange about Ying Ziyi's attitude, and in her impression, he was not someone Tian Meng came down with his hands this time, originally believing the report from his scouts. Ying Ziyi left the camp alone, with only a little girl like a maid beside him, not a first-class guard army. The forest terrain is winding, the roads are complex, and it is not conducive to military background. It is necessary to form a formation to fight against the enemy's Qin army. On the contrary, it is beneficial for his group of skilled martial arts warriors who are good at circuitous combat to showcase their strengths. But now, beside Ying Ziyi, there are two more experts, Gai Nye and the Moon God. If we fight hard against them on our own side, we will definitely not be able to gain any benefits, and we will also take advantage of the other 5 hidden members of the farmhouse. Tian Mengben was pondering whether to temporarily retreat. Upon hearing Ying Ziyi's words, he secretly thought that there was a chance, perhaps we could retreat with dignity. But Ying Ziyi's next sentence made his face turn green. I mean, all the people in your Liaison Hall are spicy chicken. At this moment, Ying Ziyi spread out his hand, pursed his mouth, as if possessed by a cannon god, arrogant, with a despicable expression that seemed a bit of anger and resentment. The appearance of being a bit dissatisfied and coming to attack me. The group mockery finally had an effect, and the hatred value progress bar displayed on the screen in front of Ying Ziyi's system was slowly increasing. Anger can no longer be controlled, even their leader Tian Meng cannot stop a group of angry subordinates. Tian Hu immediately shouted angrily and raised his sword to turn towards Ying Ziyi, hoping to end the despicable boy's life. Second brother, stop. Tian Meng wanted to stop, but couldn't stop it anymore. It was Gai Nye who made the move, wielding his long sword without any unnecessary boasting. What everyone saw was just a dazzling sword light. Afterwards, Tian Hu fell down. Seeing that his younger brother's life and death were unknown, Tian Meng could no longer calm down. Up! Up, kill them! Angry Ma Zai waved his sword and rushed forward, with only a distance of 10 or so feet between them and Ying Ziyi. These people were originally the elite children of the farming family, and they could charge up at this distance with just a few breaths. Gai Nye swung his sword and blocked Ying Ziyi in front, while the moon god's hands were making a very unique handprint. Ying Ziyi glanced at it, it seemed that the opponent was going to magnify their moves. The distance between the peasant disciple and Ying Ziyi is less than 5 zhang. More than 10 crossbows and arrows flew down from the sky and shot in front of the peasant disciples. Stop their pace. Tian Meng looked up at the sky, and the clear sky was now filled with black locust-like crossbows and arrows, densely packed, flying towards this place. It's the Qin army's crossbow formation, everyone, quickly avoid it. The Qin army's crossbow formation, breaking through mountains and seas, has gained widespread fame. Tian Meng shouted loudly, wanting to remind everyone, but it was already too late. Gai Nye held Ying Ziyi and quickly retreated. Xiaomeng and Moon God also followed Ying Ziyi on both sides and retreated. The waves of crossbows and arrows were very directional, with the big tree where Ying Ziyi was located as the boundary, heading towards the peasant disciples wave by wave. I don't know how the Qin army was positioned. After 20 waves of arrow rain, the rural disciples have suffered heavy casualties. After Ying Ziyi retreated to the big tree, the impact was minimal. With the abilities of the 3 experts around Ying Ziyi, he has not lost a single hair. Ying Ziyi returned to the center of the forest again, and the scene was very chaotic. The peasant disciples who were active and clamoring just now have lost most of their casualties, and the remaining ones have also lost half of their strength to resist the crossbow formation, collapsing to the ground without support. You're already ready. Tian Meng said with resentment. He is a first-class expert, and after 20 waves of feather arrows, he only suffered a slight injury. Most of the elite disciples of Liaison Hall have suffered losses. At this moment, he is filled with hatred, wishing he could scrape off Ying Ziyi. You're too naive. However, Ying Ziyi still didn't realize that he was being targeted by a first-class expert. Continuing to mock, I knew someone was going to deal with me, would I still leave Qin camp without any preparation? How could you become the leader with such intelligence? You. Qi and blood surged and Tian Meng collapsed to the ground, unable to catch a breath. At this moment, Sheng Qiheng stood in front of Tian Meng. You want to help me? Tian Meng was weak and seemed a bit surprised. At the same time, as a peasant disciple, I cannot stand idly by. In the crossbow formation just now, Sheng Qi's general, Tu Xing, stood in front of Tian Hu and him, blocking the 20 waves of arrow rain and protecting Tianhu's life. Ying Ziyi looked at Xingqi. At this moment, the long-lost sound of the Pit Father's system rang in my ear. Wall thud. The unique branch task of the rural family, Qin Immortal, has begun. Welcome all book enthusiasts to come and read. The latest, fastest, and most popular serialized works are all original at the starting point.